The last couple of days have been nothing but interesting news for AI-related writers. And I have another one today, this time coming from Microsoft, that I thought was newsworthy enough to make an entire video about it. Let's get into it. So, Microsoft has just announced this Microsoft Copilot copyright commitment. And this is actually a very interesting article, and it's very similar to something that Adobe also released fairly recently. The gist of this announcement is that Microsoft is so confident in its position with AI that it will actually defend users or commit to defend anyone who is inflicted with a copyright claim. We saw this a while back with Adobe. Adobe basically said, if you use our product to create AI-generated art, we are so confident in our legal position to provide you with that art that we will pay for all of your legal fees and yada, yada, yada. And it was a really bold and cool position to see Adobe take, and now we're seeing Microsoft take it again. Let's break down this blog post announcing everything here. So first off, it starts by saying, yes, some customers are concerned about the risk of IP infringement claims if they use the output produced by generative AI. This is understandable given recent public inquiries by authors and artists regarding how their work is being used in conjunction with AI models and services. Now, this makes sense, right? We have seen a number of lawsuits, notably the one by author Sarah Silverman and a couple of other authors with her, all about claiming infringement for their books and against ChatGPT, I believe, in particular. So this is an understandable concern, and I'm sure Microsoft has seen a lot of inquiries about this very thing, about saying, hey, if I use your thing, am I going to get sued? You know, very understandable concern to have. So Microsoft says, to address this customer concern, Microsoft is announcing our new Copilot copyright commitment. As customers ask whether they can use Microsoft's Copilot services and the output they generate without worrying about copyright claims, we are providing a straightforward answer. Yes, you can. I love this. Okay, rarely do you see a big corporation coming out of the gate swinging like this and being so definitive in their position on something. Yes, you can. And if you are challenged on copyright grounds, we will assume responsibility for the potential legal risks involved. Boom! Go Microsoft. I don't usually feel like cheering on these big corporations, but amen. Now, there is a caveat to this. If you look here, there is some small print. It said, specifically if a third party sues a commercial customer for copyright infringement for using Microsoft's Copilot or the output they generate, we will defend the customer and pay the amount of any adverse judgments or settlements that result from the lawsuit, as long as the customer uses the guardrails and content filters we have built into our products. So this comes with the caveat that, you know, they talk a little bit about how Copilot is built with a number of content filters and things to keep it compliant in their legal vision of what compliant is. So I don't know what those guardrails involve necessarily, but if I had to guess, I would say things like if you wanted it to write in the style of Stephen King, that might be something that they don't do. And if they can prove that you have somehow gotten around those guardrails, then you might not be as protected as they seem to think here. They basically say, as long as you adhere to the standards of the program, then we will defend you if any cases arise. They then go and detail why they are starting this program, and let's just talk a little bit about all three of these. They say, we believe in standing behind our customers when they use our products. Yeah, this is, you know, I'm calling a little bit of BS on that. Of course, that's the way they would frame it, but basically they just want to make sure people want to use their product, and so they're willing to take on the legal fees just so that they can get more people over that hurdle. But I do acknowledge that it's nice to see them saying things like, we should make this our problem rather than our customer's problem. I will admit it is nice to just say, I wouldn't have to worry about that if I'm using Copilot. And then they basically say the same thing in a different way. They say, we are sensitive to the concerns of authors, and we believe that Microsoft, rather than our customers, should assume the responsibility to address them. So, they don't want to shut out the people who are having problems with AI completely. They want to acknowledge that those people might have legitimate concerns, but they feel like they are the ones to take care of it, not the individual people using their product. Okay. But then this is interesting what they say here. We have built important guardrails into our copilots to help respect authors' copyright. So they're making this claim. I don't know exactly what these content filters mean, but if we continue reading it says we have incorporated filters and other technologies that are designed to reduce the likelihood that copilots return infringing content. Notice they say infringing. That doesn't necessarily mean if you wanted to write in the style of someone. It just means that it's not going to actually copy from somebody's actual work. It doesn't mean that it wasn't trained on that work, because under current U.S. copyright law, that is legal. It just means that it should, if all goes well, not infringe on that copyright, not plagiarize it. These build on and complement our work to protect digital safety, security, and privacy based on a broad range of guardrails such as classifiers, meta prompts, content filtering, and operational monitoring and abuse detection, including that which potentially infringes third-party content. Our new Copilot copyright commitment requires that customers use these technologies, creating incentives for everyone to better respect copyright concerns. So basically, they're doing what they feel they can. The other important thing that I think you should notice in this particular article is this phrase right here. This new benefit doesn't change Microsoft's position that it does not claim any intellectual property rights in the outputs of its Copilot services. So that's just another little side note that I think is important, that anything you generate with Copilot on Microsoft's products is basically yours to claim as intellectual property, and Microsoft isn't going to claim any of that just because they are the software being used. So a couple of you are probably wondering, like, what is Copilot exactly? How does it work? Is it something we should be using? I haven't done any deep dives on it yet because so far what I've experienced has not been quite up to par for writers. But there are some really cool things that are coming out of it and some cool directions that Microsoft is going in. And the same can be said of Google with integrating all of their services with AI. But Microsoft's Copilot is basically, I can tell you one thing, it runs on GPT-4. So it's basically the same language model that you get with ChatGPT. It's just integrated in a different way. And there is a separate subscription. I believe off the top of my head, it's $30 a month, which is a little pricey, given that that's, more than ChatGPT costs. But that integrates it into all of the Microsoft Office suite. So if you use Word, or if you use Excel, there's multiple ways in which GPT-4 can integrate with all of those different tools. So it could actually be a really useful tool if you work specifically with those software products. I personally don't really write in Word anymore. I write with Atticus or with Google Docs, but I still use Word for other things, and I use Excel from time to time. So there are definitely places where it could be useful. And let's just be clear that this announcement for the copyright commitment is only for Copilot at this time. So they are not going to defend you if you're using ChatGPT or any of those other tools. But I think this, combined with Adobe doing the same thing for their generative AI, is a clear sign that these big corporations who have huge legal teams are very confident in their position with copyright. They would not be making these outlandish claims that they would cover the legal fees if they didn't feel that they were in a good position. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they won't ever have to swoop in and actually cover some of these lawsuits, because they almost certainly will, but they are confident enough to know that it will be worth the cost and that they are likely to win, because they are confident enough to come out and say, yeah, we'll defend all of you in whatever legal case you may find, as long as you're using our product ethically or within the boundaries that we set. So really interesting news here. And I always get a little bit of glee that I probably shouldn't be so gleeful about whenever I see articles like this, because it just goes to show you that AI really is not going away. And anyone who says it is, you can show them stories like this and say, if Microsoft's legal team thinks that this is a viable option and that they're not going to be facing enough pushback to really cause them any big trouble, then, it's a safe bet that we know where this is going, legally speaking. And I've been saying it for a while, but the fact that we don't have these huge corporations like Disney or Warner Brothers, these companies that have huge IPs, and not seeing them come out and suing OpenAI or Midjourney or any of these people, because these companies have clearly trained their data on Disney stuff, on Warner Brothers stuff. You can go out and you can generate an image of Batman, or you can write a comic book in the style of a comic book artist from Marvel. You can absolutely do those things. These models have been trained on that copyrighted data, but these big corporations have taken no legal action. That to me is a huge tell that the legal teams over there have a solid understanding of what is or is not going to be viable with these lawsuits. All of the lawsuits that have come out so far have usually been from individual authors, artists, or small corporations. None of them have been from these big corporations that have the huge legal teams on them. And so I think that's very telling on where we're going to see the legal direction of these things go. Now, there may be some legislation that causes a bit of a hiccup here or there that'll require just some adjustment, but the overall direction of generative AI in the marketplace, I think, is not going away, and it's only becoming more and more commonplace. Those are my thoughts on this and other similar news items. I'll see you in the next video.